Imagine applying for a job, a loan, or even housing, and getting rejected without ever speaking to a person. No one looked you in the eye. No one heard your story. The decision was made by a black box algorithm. And what if that algorithm was built on data that said people like you are a risk? This isn't a hypothetical. This is happening every day, and it's called algorithmic oppression, a system that promises objectivity but silently automates inequality. We live in a world where digital systems increasingly govern real-world opportunities. Algorithms sort resumes, decide who sees what ads, detect fraud, score creditworthiness, and even inform sentencing in criminal courtrooms. These systems are often seen as neutral, math, not malice. But here's the truth. Algorithms learn from data, and data reflects the society that generated it. If our world is biased, then the machines we build will be too. Let's take a real-world example. Facial recognition. Multiple studies have shown that major facial recognition tools have far higher error rates when identifying darker-skinned people, especially black women. One MIT Media Lab study found that error rates for white male faces were under 1%. For black female faces, over 35%. That means police departments and security systems using this tech are more likely to misidentify people of colour. And those misidentifications have already led to wrongful arrests. But it doesn't stop with faces. Search engines, ad platforms, and social media feeds also play a role in perpetuating bias. Take Google image search. In the past, searching for terms like CEO or professional hairstyle would yield mostly white men, while searching for unprofessional hair often showed black women with natural hairstyles. These aren't just offensive results, they shape perceptions. They teach the internet's users what success looks like and who doesn't fit that mold. Social media platforms are perhaps the most insidious. They determine what content we see, which voices get amplified, and which get silenced. TikTok has been accused of suppressing videos from black creators, disabled users, and people deemed less attractive by internal moderation guidelines. These policies aren't always public, but their impact is visible. Popular creators say their engagement drops without warning. Their content simply doesn't show up. The platform claims to fight bullying, but the algorithm ends up reinforcing an aesthetic of whiteness, thinness, and privilege, while filtering out everything else. Even ride-sharing and delivery apps aren't neutral. Uber once faced scrutiny when studies found that drivers were more likely to cancel rides on users with black-sounding names. DoorDash and Postmates have been accused of algorithmic scheduling and pay systems that penalize drivers in underserved neighborhoods, many of which are historically black or brown. It's not always blatant, but the patterns repeat. So how does this happen? It starts with the training data. AI systems learn by looking at huge datasets of past behavior. If those datasets reflect racist, sexist, or classist patterns, the AI will learn to mimic them, sometimes even exaggerate them. An algorithm trained on historical arrest records may predict that black neighborhoods are higher risk, not because of inherent crime, but because those neighborhoods were over-policed to begin with. Garbage in, garbage out. That's not just a programming flaw, it's structural harm. But it's not just the data, it's the designers. Most tech companies are run and staffed by white, male, affluent individuals. When development teams lack diversity, they often fail to ask key questions. Who might this harm? Who might it overlook? What assumptions are we building into the code? When bias isn't addressed at the design stage, it becomes embedded into the product, rolled out at scale, and multiplied across millions of users. This isn't always intentional. That's what makes it more dangerous. The harm is systemic, not personal. It's coded into the platforms we use every day, and most users never realize it. The real danger is invisibility. It's not just about what we see online, it's about what we don't see, because someone, or something, decided we weren't worth showing it to. We often assume that technology will save us from human flaws, that machines will be better decision makers because they aren't emotional, prejudiced, or tired. But here's the paradox. Machines learn from us. They don't start from scratch. They're trained on data, on millions of human decisions. And if those decisions reflect bias, then the system becomes an amplifier, not a fix. This is why algorithmic oppression is so dangerous. It hides injustice behind a veil of objectivity. If a judge gives a harsh sentence, we can question their reasoning. But if a computer algorithm gives that same recommendation, it feels more scientific, more justified. Even though it may be quietly replicating decades of biased judicial decisions. One of the most alarming examples is a tool called Compass. It's a risk assessment algorithm used in US courts to help determine bail and sentencing. It scores defendants based on how likely they are to reoffend. But investigative reporting revealed that Compass systematically scored black defendants as higher risk than white defendants, even when controlling for actual criminal records. The company behind it claimed the model was fair, but it refused to make its methodology public. Defendants couldn't challenge the results because they didn't even know how the score was calculated. It was like being sentenced by a black box. This is what's called techno-authoritarianism, when opaque systems are used to justify decisions that impact people's lives. You can't appeal a shadow. You can't argue with an algorithm you can't see. And increasingly, people don't even know they're being judged by one. It's not just in criminal justice. Algorithms decide what neighborhoods get targeted for mortgage offers, what students see in educational content, what ads are served to which users. In 2019, a study found that an algorithm used in healthcare decisions was less likely to refer black patients for care, even when they had similar health conditions to white patients. Why? Because it used historical spending as a proxy for need. And historically, black patients had lower access to care, so the algorithm assumed they needed less help. In trying to be cost-efficient, the system encoded inequality into medical treatment. And in hiring? Resume filtering algorithms have been known to downrank applicants who didn't attend elite universities, who had gaps in their work history, or who listed experiences more common among first-generation college students. These systems were designed to be efficient, but in doing so, they've become exclusionary. If the past was unequal, then automating the past only guarantees a future that's still unequal. So what's the solution? It starts with awareness. The first step is naming the problem. Bias in tech isn't rare, it's routine. And calling it out helps chip away at the myth of neutrality. Tech literacy is also key. We need to demystify these tools for the public. People should know when they're interacting with an algorithm and what it's doing behind the scenes. But we also need better regulation. The companies building these systems must be held accountable. There should be transparency mandates, a right to know when algorithmic decision-making is being used and what data is feeding it. Just as we require food labels, we need algorithmic labels. What's inside the model? Who tested it for bias? What communities were consulted? In the same way that civil rights laws reshaped hiring, housing, and education in the analog world, we now need digital civil rights laws for the algorithmic age. Laws that ensure fairness, prevent discrimination, and allow people to challenge decisions made by machines. AI audits, impact assessments, and ethical oversight should be mandatory, not optional. And finally, the people designing these systems must reflect the people they serve. Diversity in tech isn't just about optics, it's about perspective. When teams are diverse, they ask different questions, they spot blind spots, they think twice before embedding assumptions into code.